Welcome to What If Deku was forced to kill to protect his new family, a dark twist, a powerful bond, and a harem built on survival. The moment Inko abandoned Izuku on the street, he had no other choice but to wander aimlessly. A defect? The little one would think as he walked aimlessly. Luckily, it was still daylight, and there were plenty of people around, but no one came forward to help the little boy. Not even a hero. Why? The place where the little boy was a place where reporters didn't go. If there weren't any reporters, the heroes had no reason to be there. "I'm hungry," said the little boy as he felt his stomach growling for food. After wandering the streets for hours, night would finally fall. The little boy would collapse to the ground, his body exhausted and hungry. "Why doesn't anyone help me?" the little boy whispered as more tears fell from his eyes. "Hey, what are you doing here?" A sweet and soft voice was heard in front of Izuku. When he looked up he could see that she was a girl his age. She had black eyes and jet black hair. "You don't have to care," the little boy said, and he didn't see how a little girl his age could help him, and he didn't want her to find out that he was quirkless. The little girl, somewhat indignant, was going to say something, but when she noticed the look on the little boy's face, she knew that instead of getting angry with him, she had to help him. "Yes, after all we are strangers. So from now on we are friends. What do you think? Isn't it great?" asked the little brunette. She was going to continue talking but was interrupted by hearing the sound of the little boy's stomach. "Are you hungry?" the little girl asked, and Izuku gave a slight nod in response. Izuku watched as the little girl ran out of the place. "Anyway, I didn't expect anything," said the little one before continuing to lie on the floor. After a few minutes he was about to close his eyes, until he saw a sweet face with a beautiful smile, looking into his eyes. "Here. Eat," the brunette said with a smile before giving a bag to the little one. "What?" the little one asked with some doubt. "You're hungry, aren't you? Besides, I like to help," the girl said with a smile. Little Izuku with some doubt would take the bag and open it. "Croissants and pastries," the little green-haired boy thought before starting to eat. How jealous LPTM. The little girl was going to say something, but she couldn't because two bodyguards were quickly approaching them. "Well, it seems they found me. See you," the little girl said with some sadness before walking towards her bodyguards. Izuku watched the distance as it moved away and he just continued eating with a smile. "Now that I remember, I didn't ask your name," said the little one before continuing to eat. After a few minutes, he would continue walking, until the little one could only watch as a van parked, and then he began to close his eyes. When he woke up he noticed he was in some kind of laboratory. Izuku was inside what appeared to be a cell. "Where am I?" the little boy asked, quite upset, as he grabbed the bars of the cell. "You finally wake up," a voice was heard in front of the cell. The author was the same person in a robe from before. "You again?" the little boy asked, feeling some confidence inside him because he had already had a chat with the person in front of him and he seemed to be quite friendly. Yes, the person replied. "Could you get me out of here and tell me what's going on?" the little one asked. Ha 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 ha, I think you're being stupid and naive right now. You know something? I think it would be a good idea to teach you a rule of life. Don't trust anyone," said the person in front of him before walking towards the exit. "What ha? Ugh," a heart-rending scream sounded throughout the lab. What was happening? The person in the lab coat had shot the little green-haired boy in the stomach. "Let's see if this helps you regenerate," the person whispered with a macabre smile. But nothing. From the wound more and more blood began to fall to the ground. "Maybe I should try more." "Yeah, that's what I'm going to do," the person said before approaching the cell and opening it to take out Izuku who had fainted from the pain. Little Izuku would open his eyes again. This time he found himself tied to a chair. "It took you a long time to wake up. Your body hasn't suffered any changes unfortunately. But your body hasn't exploded like I thought it would. I think I should investigate it more," said the person before taking out a blue bottle. "What is?" The little boy couldn't finish speaking when he noticed how the person injected that bottle into his body. "It'll be quick," he said with a grim smile before noticing how the little one began to scream in pain. "Oops. I think I overdid it a little with the dose," he said, seeing how the little one kept screaming in pain. After a few minutes the pain finally ended and now Izuku was breathing heavily. "Fortunately you didn't faint this time, will that be a breakthrough?" the person said with that creepy smile still on his face. Please. And no more," said the little one, very exhausted. "What are you talking about? You'll be here for the rest of your days. the person said before leaving the place. Now Izuku was back in that cell. Unfortunately, there are no funds to do a more in-depth investigation for this test subject. From what it seems, the government did not want to fund more for a simple defective quirkless, said the person in a bathrobe who thought that Izuku was sleeping. Government? Thought the little one while pretending to be sleeping. Well, this is sad. It seems that I can only guide myself by the physical changes that your body has, said the person mockingly. The next day, a new day was dawning. For some it would be a happy day, for some it was a boring day, and for others, it was a day full of suffering. One of those who were suffering during this day was the little green-haired boy who was currently doing a workout that his body could barely bear. If he endures this hell, maybe he can get the government to give him more funds. But how clever I am, the person thought in a macabre way while he watched the little one train. After a few minutes, the little one would fall unconscious due to the enormous overload that his body had to endure. Not bad for a brat, the person said before taking the little boy to his cell. 1 week later. A week had passed, and since then Izuku's daily life became 1. Receiving doses of that strange serum, and 2. Receiving training that he could barely endure. As time passed, the doses increased, reaching a point where Izuku could only tolerate half of one before falling unconscious. This caused the person in the gown to begin to feel disappointed. Maybe I should get funding from somewhere else. The government no longer trusts the project, and today I will have to contact the boss to tell him everything that has happened during these days, thought the person in a gown until a voice sounded behind him. I preferred to come in person, said the voice behind the person in the robe. Boss. The person in the lab coat greeted with a smile. How many times do I have to tell you to call me sensei? Said a person with a mask who was the one behind the person in a robe. Yes, sensei, said the person in the robe with a smile. Will you tell me what you've been doing? Asked the sensei of the person in the robe. Yes, the person in a robe answered, pointing to the cell where Izuku is. He is test subject number 001. His body has accepted almost 100% of the legendary kitsune's DNA. Although there is no noticeable physical change, I estimate that when his body fully accepts it, that will change, said the person in the robe. Fine, I'll stay and supervise everything. How are the funds we requested from the government going? The sensei asked the person in the robe, who answered bluntly. They haven't given us more funds. According to them, it's because they don't trust that a defective without a quirk can withstand the DNA of the legendary kitsune, said the person in the robe. I think you know what I think about that, right? The sensei of the place asked. Yes, I know. But I'll still take the risk, said the person in the gown. A few days later. Several days had passed. Izuku's body already had 100% of the legendary kitsune's DNA, but his body showed no apparent physical change. How's everything going? Asked the sensei of the person in the robe. The DNA of the legendary kitsune has been successfully accepted. The problem is, there are no physical changes, and we don't have the funds to run tests on its body, the other person said in response. You know what I'm going to say, right? The boss asked, looking at the person in the lab coat. Yes. I think it was in vain. I was hoping it might work. But it seems it didn't. The person in the robe said with disappointment. He's useless, defective. His body may have accepted the DNA, but if there's no noticeable physical change, he's no use to us. Get rid of that trash, said the boss of the place, not realizing that the little green-haired boy was listening to the entire conversation. I know I'm useless. I know I'm a defect. I know I'm just scum. Why is the world like this? I didn't choose this. The green-haired man thought while some tears fell from his cheeks. As for what you'll do, no one else must know that we failed. I'll try to work this out with the government to get more funding. Just make sure no one finds out that there was ever a test subject who failed. Do you understand? The boss of the place said and asked in an authoritarian tone. Yes, said the person in a gown. The moment he said that, the boss of the place came out. The person in the lab coat would take out a file in which all of Izuku's progress was recorded. I wonder, what will I do with this? He said, looking at the file and then taking out a pen and crossing out the name test subject number 001 and putting test subject number 000. That's better. Now I have to hide this, he said, leaving the place. A few minutes later, the person in the robe would return to Izuku's cell and open it. Can I be Lee? Now? The little one couldn't finish because he fell unconscious, thanks to an injection given to him by the person in a gown. I guess in the end, I expected a lot from a simple defect. said the person in a gown before abandoning the little green-haired boy who was unconscious. Small clarification, I will use the from now on to make small time skips of hours or minutes and such. I will only use the time skip x day/year/month for long times. The will be for when something important happens in a flashback but nothing about it is told. Example. You could see a cemetery, in it there was a person who was praying to a grave. So you came back, right? Said the person praying at the grave before glancing towards a tree. Yeah. A few hours after being abandoned, Izuku would finally wake up. Where am I? Muttered the little one who saw blurry. After a few minutes, the little one could finally see well. Looking around, the little boy realized he was in what appeared to be a forest. I need food. I'm hungry. The green-haired man said weakly before starting to walk through the forest in search of food. Being in that state, the little one didn't think much about what he was doing and ended up getting even more lost than he was. After walking for minutes, the little one would fall to the ground, completely tired. If I continue like this, I'll end up unconscious, said the little boy who was slowly beginning to close his eyes. I'm not even good enough to look for my own food, how weak I am. The little boy said, but just as he was about to close his eyes. You're right, brat. You're very weak. At your age, I was already hunting my own food in this vast forest. That was the last thing Izuku heard before he completely closed his eyes. A few hours had passed. The man who had spoken before little Izuku became unconscious was sitting reading a book, while the little boy was resting behind him. Interesting. So you're awake now, huh? Said the guy before closing the book and resting his arms on the armrest of his chair. Where am I? The little one asked in a whisper. In my old cabin. Said the guy before turning the chair around to reveal an old man of about 65 years old. That old man was in good shape for his age. The little one was going to say something but was interrupted as his stomach started to growl. I'll bring you something to eat, said the old man, getting up from his chair. Don't worry, it's not me. The little boy couldn't finish because the old man interrupted him. Don't say anything, brat, the old man said before leaving the room. After a few minutes the old man would enter the room with a bowl of soup and hand it to the little boy, who happily began to eat. After a few minutes it would finally end and the old man would speak. Well, you'll sleep in this room, said the old man who left the room, not letting the green-haired man say anything. This is strange, the green-haired man said before lying down on the bed. After a few minutes the little one couldn't get to sleep, so he gave up. Why can't I sleep? The green-haired man said in a low voice before getting out of bed and approaching one of the windows in the room. Looking out the window, he could see that old man in a meditation position. Izuku's eyes, which were previously a dull green, would shine a little thanks to 5 lights that lit up in the stomach of that old man. Each one had a different color. Awesome, said the little boy as he looked at that old man. The little boy was going to keep looking, but he couldn't keep doing it because the old man would suddenly look in his direction. The green-haired boy in response would quickly hide and lie down on the bed. The next day. Finally a new day had arrived and the green-haired boy was slowly waking up. Without saying or making any movement after opening your eyes, the door would open. Brat, come outside, the old man said to the green-haired man, who would simply listen to what the old man said. Once outside, the old man would speak. Take this, throwing a wooden sword in his direction. You will train with me, the old man said, making Izuku open his eyes wide. And what would you gain from that? The little one asked, not very trusting. I'd earn more than you can imagine. I'm doing this more for myself than for you, brat. I want you to keep that in mind, the old man said before getting into a fighting stance with a cardboard sword. You're aware that you'll beat me easily, right? After all, I'm a defect, Izuku said pessimistically. I won't know if that's true if you don't train with me. Now come, I'll let you make the first move, the old man said as he took a defensive stance. The green-haired man, with no other option, would throw himself at the old man. The little boy was slowly opening his eyes. When he opened them fully, he could see the old man sitting in the grass in front of him, reading a book. Oh, I lost, said the little one with some sadness. Although he already knew he was going to lose, he became depressed. Yes, you were unconscious, said the old man before closing the book. I'm not surprised, said the little boy who was going to sit on the floor, but the old man spoke. Although it's strange. I have no memories of the fight. The green-haired man thought somewhat thoughtfully. Who said you could rest? We have to keep going, the old man said before getting back into a fighting stance. The little one would listen to what the old man said and get into a fighting stance. A few hours had passed, the green-haired man was already tired. In each of the friendly confrontations they had, the old man won, and in all of them the little green-haired boy was rendered unconscious before the first blow was struck. On the other hand, the old man was as cool as a cucumber. Despite his age, he wasn't even sweating. The green-haired man would finally open his eyes and sit on the floor. "Well, I guess that's enough for today. Let's go inside," the old man said before walking towards the cabin while the little boy followed him. Izuku's POV. 2 years have passed since then. Nothing major has happened during this time. The old man behaves the same way he always does. And that strikes me as odd. Even for me, he's become someone I could consider a father. Yes, a father. He's done a lot for me over the years. Although he's not very sentimental, in fact, whenever he has the chance, he always says that he trains me more for himself than for me, and that seems strange to me. Sometimes I see him training and those same lights appear. That seems strange to me. I guess it's probably his quirk. I also realize that this forest is on the outskirts of Japan, thanks to a map I found in the room. I always find the old man either training or reading. I have rarely seen him eating or doing anything else. He doesn't even talk about himself, nor has he asked me anything. Absolutely nothing. In fact, I don't think he even knows my name, and I don't know his either. There are no pictures or photos of him in the cabin. It looks as if he has lived there his whole life. Whenever the old man and I have a fight, the same thing keeps happening to me. I become unconscious and don't remember anything about the fight afterwards. It gets to a point where I find it frustrating. As for my strength, I'm still just as weak. At most I'll be a little stronger thanks to the old man's training. Training that always leaves me tired. It was daytime and the little green-haired boy, now 6 years old, was sitting at the table, eating. On the other hand, the old man was sitting reading a book. "Why do you always read books, old man?" Izuku asked while drinking some juice. "Because I like them, that's simply the reason," said the old man before getting up from his chair. "Hurry up, we have to go train," said the old man, receiving a nod from Izuku. The little one had finally finished eating and was now training with the old man. After a few hours, they had finally finished training and were now drinking some water. "I didn't know you drank water, man," Izuku said with some mockery because he doesn't remember the last time he saw him drink water. In fact, it's likely that he's never seen him do it. "Shut up, brat. Your concentration should be directed towards more important things, like training," the old man said after drinking water. "You're absolutely right, I'll go train," Izuku said before heading into the forest to continue training. "You can come out now, I know you're there," the old man said once he lost sight of Izuku. Suddenly, 4 people were surrounding the old man. "How did they find me? I'm sure it was impossible for them to do it," the old man said, seeing the 4 men in front of him. "That's simple, old man. We're just following the trail of your forbidden art, the great and fabulous." He was about to continue but was interrupted. "No need to say more," said the old man with darkened eyes. "Let's be realistic, sooner or later we were going to find you, no matter how much of a mole you can be," said another of the silhouettes with a mocking smile. "Yes, that's true. But still, do you think you can defeat me? Ha ha ha. Don't make me laugh," the old man said with a defiant smile. "Could you remind me what you were looking for? I think I forgot because of my old-fashioned memory," the old man said with a mocking smile. "Ha ha ha. What a good joke, old man. The answer is simple, we're looking for your daughter. The heiress of your forbidden art," said one of the men with a smile. "Ha ha ha. Haven't you noticed? You fell into my trap. I wouldn't be so stupid as to leave such an obvious trail. Besides, you came here because you sensed my daughter's trail, didn't you?" The old man slowly smiled more and more. "What are you talking about, decrepit old man?" the same man asked with doubt. "My daughter is currently in a place you'll never find. I left some traces to set a trap for you. I knew you'd show up here sooner or later," the old man said, still with that smile. "The truth is that reality is a little different," thought the old man without removing that smile. "I have to admit, I didn't think you could have that much intelligence even when you were old, right, Toki?" the guy said with a calm smile. "You're absolutely right," the old man said before getting into a fighting stance. "Why so aggressive, Toki? How about you buy us a coffee first?" the guy said with a mocking smile. "I don't think I can finish them off. I hope that at some point you realize the great power that emanates from within you, brat," were the last thoughts of the old man before launching into battle. The four men lunged at the old man, their attacks completely synchronized. It was as if they were connected. Have you become weaker? LOL. Laughed one of the guys who was practically beating the old man up. Fire magic, fireball. The old man would create a large fireball and throw it at the four subjects. What a ridiculous bullshit. Why don't you use your forbidden art instead? Oh, that's right. You don't have it anymore, LOL. One of the guys laughed mockingly before appearing in front of the old man and giving him a strong blow that would send him in the direction of the cabin. TSK. This is bad. If I continue like this, I'll die. The old man said before running at full speed towards one of the subjects. Not bad, for an old man you're pretty fast. Another guy would have already broken his back. He laughed mockingly before taking out a pistol and shooting him twice, once in the chest and once in the stomach. He laughed mockingly before taking out a gun and shooting him twice, once in the chest and once in the stomach. The old man would fall to the ground, unable to do anything. This is for the demon sunshine. Did you understand, decrepit old man? One of the guys asked mockingly. Ha, ha, ha. The demon sunshine? I don't give a damn. His stupid goal of stealing the 5 forbidden arts is doomed. The old man said with some difficulty while coughing up some blood. I think you're stupid. We just killed you, or we're the only one who could stand up to us. But now you're dead. We'll find your brat of a daughter very soon. The guy said, but in response, the old man just laughed. She? She could. But she won't be the only one who will finish you off. The old man said with some difficulty. So? Who is that other someone? Nobody, right? The guy was going to continue but couldn't finish speaking because he was interrupted by a voice. Old man. The voice came from a green-haired man who had just finished his training. Is that who you meant? Don't make me laugh. Ashley, try the machine. I don't think the old man is that stupid. The man said, and the man called Ashley pulled out a device that seconds later would mark green. So he's the one with the art, is he? Or should I say, half of it? The guy said with a mocking smile. I guess we just have to get rid of him. The guy said with a smile. Old man. Izuku would run towards the old man. He whispered to him to stop. But it was too late. The subjects had surrounded him. Run away, brat. The old man shouted to Izuku, who couldn't say anything, because. So you're still alive, you damn worm. The guy said before taking out his gun and shooting him again, this time near his heart. Witnessing that, Izuku's eyes began to flicker between a sky blue and a dull green. Do you think that scares us? The guy asked with a mocking smile. I should. With that thing he almost killed me on many occasions. The old man thought as he remembered. Flashback. It was Toki and Izuku's first confrontation. As the fight began, Izuku's eyes changed to a slightly opaque sky blue, claws grew from his hands and he easily dodged Toki's sword blows. Dash, what the hell is that? I've never seen it before. He thought, but because he was distracted, Izuku would give him a strong blow that would send him flying into a tree. The blow was so hard that he couldn't get up. Luckily Izuku had just been knocked unconscious. When Izuku woke up, he decided to tell him that he was the winner, that way Izuku would concentrate on his training and improving. This wasn't the only time Toki saw that, the same thing had happened in all the confrontations. End of flashback. Izuku's pupils had also changed, they were now slanted. His hair also stood up a little and turned a shade of blue. He had also grown claws. Izuku would run at high speed towards the subjects and start fighting. Even though he was at a disadvantage in the number of people he was fighting with, that didn't mean he wasn't winning by a bit of an advantage. Izuku would scratch him with the help of his claws that would leave a blue fire mark on his victims. That fire began to increase little by little. It reached a point where the subjects had to cut off their arms because if it continued like that it would probably end them. We have to escape, said one of the subjects, receiving agreement from the rest, who fired a smoke ball and disappeared. Izuku would fall to his knees on the ground. The old man, with the little strength he had left, would approach Izuku. He would put one of his hands in his back pocket and take out a paper and then leave it as close to Izuku as possible. He, when you read it, please take care of it. And those were the last words of Toki, who fell to the ground, dead. Izuku would fall unconscious and end up collapsed on the ground. A few hours had passed and Izuku was waking up. When he fully opened his eyes, he could see a piece of paper next to him. What happened? The green-haired man thought before seeing in front of him the lifeless body of the one who was once his teacher. Mice. After seeing the dead body of his master, he had become upset until he remembered what had just happened. I understand now. Who were those guys? Izuku thought before grabbing the letter. Dear Brat. If you're reading this, it's because I may have already died. Where do I begin? My name is Toki Minoko. The first time I saw you, I had no idea you were going to become so important to me. At first, your training began with the goal of you inheriting my ability, my power. At first, my plan was to give that power to my daughter, but she was too young to receive it all. That's why I gave half to you. I couldn't wait too long since those guys were already close. To be able to train this power, you need a few more things that I didn't have, so I was never able to teach you how to use it. That's why I want you to do something for me, Brat. I want you to find my daughter and train the two of you together so you can master that power. She was adopted by a family called Ikinos. This family is in danger because of a criminal group that calls itself Red Eclipse. Unfortunately, I can't do anything anymore, so please take care of her. She is in if you want to know more about me, if you need any kind of help. You can look in the basement of the cabin. Ate, Toki Minoko. After reading the letter, Izuku would get up from the ground and walk towards the cabin. Know more about you, huh? That old man. Izuku muttered in a low voice as he walked down the stairs to the basement. Once in the basement, the green-haired man would head toward an area where there was a kind of library. There was also a small safe. I've never been to this place before. The green-haired man murmured in a low voice as he looked through the books. After reviewing the books, he separated the ones that looked interesting from the ones that seemed a bit boring. I should never judge a book by its cover. But please. What do you mean by furry experience? Old pervert. The green-haired man said in a low voice before directing his gaze towards the safe that was near him. What is this? The green-haired man muttered in a low voice as he approached the safe. When he tried to open it, he noticed that it had a password. Which one will it be? He said in a low voice before looking towards a painting that was in the room. Why would he put the password on such a strange painting? The green-haired man thought, looking at the painting in front of him. Why was the painting strange? Well, maybe the word strange is too strong a word to describe the painting. This one was rather strange, because on the left side, you could see a sun. It was strange since the sun was literally shining, not just because of the paint. On the right, there was a moon, the same as with the sun. And in the center, there was what appeared to be an eclipse. It doesn't matter. He muttered softly as he entered the password on the safe. Upon opening the safe, there were 2 books. Izuku would take one of them. A diary? And what is that book? The green-haired boy wondered, seeing a book that looked quite old. Without thinking much about it, I would put both books together with the others I had already taken out, in a backpack that was in the basement. Once everything was ready, he would prepare to leave the basement. Once outside, I knew I had something to do. A few hours had passed, Izuku had already finished what he was doing. Rest in peace, old man, said Izuku, who was praying to a grave he had just finished. After praying, Izuku would get up and start walking towards a specific direction in the forest. 2 years living in this forest and training in it, I know it like the back of my hand. The green-haired man thought before starting to run. It had been almost an hour since he started running, and finally the road was visible, a sign that he was close to leaving the forest. Once he was finally on the road, he had no idea where he was going. Right or left? I thought undecided about where I would go. My intuition tells me to go to the right, I'll go there. The green-haired man thought, once he decided he would start walking in that direction. I'm very hungry, thought the green-haired man who had already been walking for 2 hours and was already starving. I'll hunt my own food, he murmured softly, remembering his master's teachings. Izuku would hide in a bush and a few minutes later he would see a rabbit passing by. I got you, he said, jumping towards the rabbit, but he couldn't do much because it escaped. I don't even have the energy to catch a rabbit, was the last thing he said as he noticed how her eyes slowly closed. A few hours had passed, Izuku was waking up. Once awake he could see that there was a bag next to him. This one would open that bag with curiosity. Croissants, he said, seeing those delicious breads. Who would have left that here? The green-haired man wondered while eating. After eating, the green-haired man would resume his journey. A few hours had passed, Izuku was on the outskirts of Japan. Well, first of all I have to find that family, thought the green-haired man who would start walking in search of that family. Where do I start? The green-haired man asked himself as he crossed a road. The little green-haired boy couldn't notice how a car traveling at high speed was approaching him. The green-haired man couldn't avoid being run over by that car. I killed him. The driver shouted, quite scared. You're stupid, said the person who seemed to be the driver's wife. Kaya, don't talk like that in front of your daughter, said who seemed to be the grandmother of the family. Instead of talking, you should check that he is okay, said a little girl of about 6 years old. I think little Chizuru is more mature than her mother, the old woman joked as she hugged her granddaughter. The couple would get out of the car to check if the little one was okay. Lucky you. From what I can see, he's still alive, said the adult who would carry the little one. It seems that he is just unconscious. The woman sighed in relief as she followed her husband and hit him on the head. Ouch. And why was that? I asked while rubbing my head. And you still ask? The woman shouted angrily as she crossed her arms. Sorry. The adult apologized before getting into the car. And how is the little one? The old woman asked. Fortunately, she's just unconscious, the woman said, to which the old woman sighed in response. It's impossible for a child of my age to survive something like that, he's just unconscious, something is definitely going on here. Little Chizuru thought analytically. Maybe he has a powerful gift, but even so it shouldn't be so developed, thought the little girl. Anyway, we have to take him to the doctor, the woman said with some concern. Better not, we'll take care of him at home, said the grandmother, making the others surprised. What are you talking about, Grandma? The man asked. He's just unconscious, we'll take care of him, Grandma said in response. Whatever, said the woman. I agree, said the man who would start driving the car. Isn't that a little irresponsible? The girl wondered to herself. Elsewhere, you could see 4 people who seemed to be in a meeting. I can't believe a damn brat did this to us, he said, seeing that he didn't have an arm. That's not the important thing, we can reconstruct it, said one of the subjects. Well, at least now we know who has the art, said another of the guys. They were going to continue arguing, but the door would be open. At the door there was a person who gave off a great air of superiority. Boss! They all shouted before getting on their knees. Were they able to get hold of the art? The boss of the place asked bluntly. Unfortunately not, but we know who has the art, said one of the subjects, but you are useless, you are of no use to me anymore, said the boss of the place, who would take out a gun and start shooting at the 4 guys. Boss? One of the men who was still alive muttered in a low voice. Dear Ashley, if you tell me who has the art, I'll let you live, said the boss with a kind smile. It's a brat of approximately 6 years old, he has green hair, green eyes and freckles, said the one now known as Ashley. Well, as I promised. I'll let you live, after all you're still useful to me, said the boss before leaving the place. Elsewhere, the little green-haired boy was finally waking up. Where am I? The little boy murmured in a low voice before realizing he was in a room. I see you're awake, said a brunette girl who was sitting in a chair on the right side of the bed. What's your name? The green-haired man asked with some curiosity. I'll ask the questions, the little girl said with a superior tone. How were you able to survive something like being run over and simply coming out unconscious? What kind of gift do you have? The little girl asked, to which Izuku simply replied. I don't have a quirk. If I survived that, I guess I was just lucky, the green-haired boy said, to which the girl just nodded. You don't have a quirk either? The little girl asked in a low voice, to which Izuku was a little surprised. No, I don't have a quirk, he said, to which the little girl hugged him with some force. I thought I would never find someone like me, she said as some tears fell from her eyes. What's going on? Before he seemed like someone who would give me a lot of trouble, Izuku wondered in his mind. A few minutes had passed and the little girl had finally calmed down, she would sit down again. By the way, what's your name? The girl asked, this time in a friendlier tone. Izuku. The green-haired man introduced himself, to which the girl curiously asked. Just Izuku? Don't you have a last name? The girl asked with some curiosity. No, I don't have one. But that's not important. And what's your name? The green-haired boy asked with a forced smile that would be noticed by the little girl. My name is Chizuru Ikinos. The now known Chizuru Ikinos introduced herself. Finding her was faster than I thought, the green-haired man thought with a satisfied smile. They were going to continue talking, but the green-haired man's stomach would start to growl. I'll go get you some food, the little girl said kindly, to which Izuku just nodded. Thank you, the green-haired boy replied, grateful to the little girl. You're welcome, the little girl replied with a smile. A few minutes had already passed. Izuku, along with the Ikaino's family, were having dinner. I need to think of something so I can tell Chizuru the truth. Izuku would think somewhat thoughtfully. But, I don't want to ruin this family's happiness either. Thought the green-haired boy, seeing how the Ikaino's family looked quite happy and cheerful. For now I think I'll train. When I see the opportunity I'll tell Chizuru about what the old man told me. The green-haired man would think while he continued eating. By the way, kid. What were you doing walking alone? Where are your parents? The father of the family would ask. With that question, he made Izuku show a small grimace of hatred for a few seconds. It didn't take more than a second for that grimace of hatred to turn into a sad expression. Chizuru had some theories about what was going on. When they had that conversation not long ago, Izuku never mentioned his last name. He simply told her to call him Izuku. Izuku didn't want to cause any kind of disturbance or change the atmosphere of the place, and to him, they were strangers. The only thing that mattered was Chizuru Ikaino's. She was his mission, so to speak. So he did the first thing that came to mind, lie. I'm an orphan. Saying that, he thought, wouldn't cause any change in the atmosphere, because it was somewhat true, he was an orphan, but compared to the whole truth, it was nothing compared to her. That's why, when he said that, the atmosphere changed slightly. How long has it been? The mother of the family asked, quite concerned that it was a long time. Truly, if Toki Minoko was a father figure to Izuku, you could say it hasn't even been a week. And for Izuku, Toki was a father figure. But he couldn't say exactly what was going on, they were practically strangers. In any case, he only cared that one person at that table knew, and that, honestly, wasn't something he would tell Chizuru Ikaino's, at least not yet. Still, he managed to escape from that situation. Well, I've been an orphan since I was 4. Although part of what he said was true, he really didn't want them to know about Toki Minoko's existence. He wanted to avoid those questions in case he accidentally said something he shouldn't. Mother of God. Have you survived all this time alone? Asked the grandmother, her hands in her mouth, feeling a little sad for the little one. Well, you could say so, the green-haired man said, trying to force a smile in order to please them, which worked. Halfway, since Chizuru had noticed. There would be time to ask her about the reason for her smile. What do you think if we adopt you? Said the adult of the family. He hadn't spoken for a while, as he was assimilating everything. It's not necessary, Izuku replied instantly, not wanting to incur any expense for that family. Don't worry. To tell you the truth, I feel a little guilty for having run over you. But who knows, maybe it was fate, right? Said the adult with a smile, to which Izuku couldn't refuse and simply nodded. Thank you. Izuku said, this time with a small smile, but unlike before, this one was a real smile. Well, in a week we will go for the papers. The wife said with great emotion in her words. Elsewhere. How are you finding his trail, Ashley? Asked a man in an elegant suit. Okay, boss. I managed to hack into the entire city's security cameras, and it looks like I finally have a lead. Ashley said with a smile. Very good. Keep it up, Ashley. Said the boss with a smile. You'll soon be mine. Astral devastation. Thought the boss with an evil smile. Back with Izuku. The next day. Finally a new day had arrived, the green-haired boy was now waking up. Today I will begin training to be able to use the art. But how can I train it? Izuku wondered in his mind before letting out a sigh of frustration. It didn't take long for him to remember the backpack in which he kept those 2 books he had taken with him. With some hope that there were the steps to be able to use the art, he approached the backpack. I would open one of the books, and in it I could see how it seemed to be in a strange language. What language is this and why do I understand it? Was what the green-haired man asked himself, noticing that he could understand what was written in the book. To understand how this ability works, you must see it as a part of you. As if it were a limb of yours. Once you understand that, you will be ready to learn this art. The green-haired man would read this in a low voice, the more he read the more he got lost in the reading. This will do. The green-haired man said before getting out of bed and leaving the house. Once he was outside, he would start running towards a place where he could train quietly. Fortunately, it was quite early and the Ikaino's family was still asleep. Once he was in a quieter place, he would begin his training. This place was a trash-strewn beach called Dagoba. The first thing the green-haired man did was get into the lotus position. According to my teacher, meditation is important. Although, well, I wouldn't do it if it weren't because the first page says I should meditate. the green-haired man thought while meditating. Suddenly, the green-haired boy would begin to feel balls that shone inside him. If he had to give them names, it would be like Little Sun and Little Moon. As I recall, I have to make both of them stand in front of each other and form something similar to an eclipse, thought the green-haired man, who would begin to try to bring both balls together. Well, he failed. He'd lost focus. So he tried for a few hours, until he finally gave up. I'm pathetic. That's what the green-haired man thought, lying on the sand. Izuku would grab that book and throw it in frustration. The book would end up falling near the feet of a person who was passing by, more specifically, a girl a little older than him. So you're going to give up so easily? A voice was heard near Izuku. This voice came from a girl about 8 years old. She had blue hair that reached her waist, blue eyes and an innocent look. Who are you? The green-haired man asked before getting up from the sand with a frown. Come on, don't be so hostile, the girl said with a smile, causing Izuku to calm down a bit. No, I have no plans to give up, Izuku said in response to the girl's question. So what are you going to do? Are you going to stay there doing nothing? The girl said with a slightly defiant smile. No, I'm not going to do it, Izuku said in a low voice. So, take it. The girl would approach the green-haired boy, but not before taking the book to give it back to him. Thank you, the green-haired man replied with a small smile. By the way, what's your gift? What's your name? How old are you? You look younger than me. Those and more questions began to rain down on the green-haired man. I don't have a gift. I understand if you don't want to talk to me anymore, it's... Izuku was going to continue but received a hug from the girl. Don't worry about it, you're my friend, aren't you? That's what the girl said with a smile. Friends? The green-haired boy wondered. Yes, friends. Or aren't you my friend? The girl asked with some sadness. Yes, we are friends, the green-haired man replied, this time with a slightly bigger smile. Now that I remember. I have to go. See you. The girl said goodbye with a smile before running off. You didn't tell me your name, Izuku shouted from a distance, but the girl didn't hear him. Well, it doesn't matter. I'll probably see her again. For now, I'll just focus on my training. That's what the green-haired man said before grabbing the book that had happened to be open on exactly one page. This art can also awaken in other ways, some more effective than others. Among them, strong emotions, having a dance just when an eclipse is passing, meditation. But there is one that stands out among them all. Hatred towards something specific, the green-haired man would read before continuing with the training. Among those, I think the most effective is meditation. The green-haired man thought before getting into the lotus position. Elsewhere. How are you, Ashley? Asked the same guy as before. I found him, sir. That boy is in. That boy is in. Dot was what Ashley said, to which the guy in front of him, who was his boss, showed a terrifying smile. Good work, Ashley. But, I already have an idea in mind. That's what the guy said with a terrifying smile. Elsewhere. A few hours had already passed. The green-haired man was finishing meditating. This time I was closer. But I have to go back now, I hope they're not awake. That was what the green-haired man thought before starting to run towards the place. While running, he couldn't help but trip over a girl. Looking up, he saw that the girl was Chizuru, who had been searching for him for quite some time. Where were you? Was the first thing Chizuru said when she saw him. Izuku, seeing Chizuru like that, got scared, because she was a little scary. It was over there. Yeah, over there. Ha ha ha. The green-haired boy laughed in a very forced way, earning a slap on the ears from Chizuru. You had us worried, I thought something bad had happened to you, Chizuru said before giving the green-haired boy a hug. What are you doing? Izuku asked with a slight blush of embarrassment because they had just met yesterday and he was already receiving hugs. It's the least I deserve, fool. Chizuru said with a small smile. How about we go back home? Izuku said because he was already hungry. Well, Chizuru said in response. So they both began to walk. As they walked, Izuku noticed Chizuru looking in a specific direction. This was a park that was nearby. Do you want to go to the park? Izuku asked with some curiosity. It's not like I want to go. Chizuru said in a somewhat tsundere tone. Izuku would take Chizuru's hand and lead her to the park. Let's have fun, Chizuru-chan. That's what the green-haired boy said, to the surprise of the brunette, who blushed a little at the nickname. Of course, Izuku-kun, Chizuru said in response with a smile. Both would approach the park and start playing. While they were playing, the green-haired boy felt like going to the bathroom. "I'm coming, Chizuru-chan. I have to go to the bathroom," said the green-haired boy, so the brunette nodded in response. "Sure. Don't take long, Izuku-kun," Chizuru said with a smile. After a few minutes, Izuku would return, but what he saw made him quite angry. In front of him, he could see how there was a little haired boy intimidating his friend and someone else. "And what will they do, huh? Damn quirkless. They are only a hindrance to those who truly will be heroes," said the ash-haired boy, intimidating both girls. The green-haired man, seeing this, would quickly approach and stand in front of his friend and that stranger. "Kaka-chan?" was what the green-haired man said when he saw the face of the person in front of him. "Leave them alone," the green-haired man shouted angrily with a frown. "Or what else? You're just a weakling without a quirk. Or why do you think they abandoned you?" the ashen-haired boy said as he slowly approached to attack the green-haired boy. Izuku's gaze was clouded as he looked down at the ground. "You're just a useless defective, just like those weaklings you protect," said the pale-haired boy with arrogance in his words. Izuku didn't really care if they insulted him. But he wasn't the only one, there was someone else. Chizuru didn't like her friend's feelings being hurt. In fact, from the moment the pale-haired boy started insulting the green-haired boy, she was getting angrier and angrier. "And the moment I hear the last thing said by the ash-haired boy, Chizuru and Izuku, well, don't you dare call her that ! Don't you dare call him that!" They both shouted in unison before hitting the pale-haired boy hard. The ash-haired boy would quickly get up and begin to prepare an explosion with his quirk towards both of them. "Shiny!" I shouted before launching that explosion. Izuku would dodge that explosion with some difficulty and would deliver a strong blow to the ashen-haired boy. "The old man's training was effective on me," the green-haired man said before he started repeatedly hitting the pale-haired man in the face. "Do you think you'll stop me with such weak blows, damn Deku?" the ashen-haired boy shouted before starting to charge another explosion towards the green-haired boy. Once the explosion was about to be launched, Chizuru would push the green-haired boy and receive the explosion. "Chizuru!" the green-haired boy shouted when he saw how she received the explosion. Izuku managed to see how the ashen-haired boy still showed that arrogant smile and that look that disgusted Izuku. "Nobody told you to get involved, you damn who?" The ash-haired boy couldn't finish as a strong right hook hit his face. The blow was so strong that it ended up knocking down the tree that the ash-colored tree hit. Izuku would appear quite quickly in front of the ashen-haired boy. Izuku would give another blow, this time in the ashen-haired boy's stomach, which would leave a yellowish trail. That blow would leave the pale-haired boy unconscious and the green-haired boy would fall kneeling to the ground. "What was that? I've never hit so hard," the green-haired man muttered before being surprised by a strong hug. "Idiot. Don't worry me like that again," said Chizuru, who hugged the freckled boy. Behind them was the other girl who had also been saved by the green-haired boy from being harmed by the explosion madman. Thank you," the girl said in a low voice. This girl had very short yellow hair, bright blue eyes. "Don't worry," Izuku replied with some difficulty. "Are you okay?" the yellow-haired girl asked as she timidly approached the green-haired boy. "Yes, don't worry. Are you okay?" the green-haired boy asked before getting up like Chizuru. "I am, thanks to you," the girl replied with a smile. "So that's the only thing that matters," the green-haired man would say with a small smile. In gratitude, the girl would give the green-haired boy a hug and a small peck on his cheek, causing a certain amount of jealousy in the brunette. "Nice to meet you, my name is Mami Nanami." The now known as Mami Nanami introduced herself. Small clarification, as for Mami's two-faced personality, this will be changed. She will only have a similar personality, or the same one, with a stranger or someone she doesn't like. And that will be something that will happen when they grow up. "Nice to meet you, Mami Nanami. My name is Izuku." Izuku introduced himself to the blonde-haired girl and shook her hand. "Nice to meet you, Izuku," Mami said, taking his hand. "My name is Chizuru Ikainos, nice to meet you." Chizuru introduced herself. "Nice to meet you, Chizuru." Just like with Izuku, I would also shake his hand. A few minutes had passed and Mami had already left. They spent some time playing together and now Izuku along with Chizuru were arriving home. "Why am I feeling a bad feeling?" was what Izuku asked himself in his mind. "By the way, Izuku-chan. Because that little gray-haired boy said that." Chizuru couldn't finish because she saw how there were many police officers and paramedics near Chizuru's parents' house. The two children, without much choice, ran towards the place where the police officers and paramedics were. Upon arriving, with great fear and dread, they approached where some tapes were located. They would ignore those tapes, and what they saw left them in shock. In front of them were Chizuru's parents and grandmother, who had a sheet over their faces, and there was also quite a bit of blood at the scene. What happened here? Both boys asked in unison, upset. One of the police officers who was near them spoke. A criminal group calling itself Red Eclipse took the lives of everyone in the house because they had scores to settle with them. The police officer explained. It's true. The old man's letter said so. Damn. Izuku shouted to himself, completely annoyed with himself. I had to take care of them, I had to protect them. I'm a damn useless. Suddenly the green-haired man would feel like some arms surrounded him. Please hug me. I don't want to lose you too. Little Chizuru, like the green-haired boy, cried. Izuku would hug her back tightly, as if he never wanted to let go. I will finish off that damn organization, I will destroy them one by one. Red Eclipse, I will make you regret like there is no tomorrow for what you just did. Izuku's green eyes this time had become a little more opaque than before, his gaze now seemed to have quite a bit of accumulated hatred, his inner voice was now more serious. Even so, no tears had fallen from his eyes, at most he had accumulated a lot of hatred and felt upset with himself for not having been able to do anything. Something interesting was happening inside Izuku, two balls were getting closer and closer. At the same time, both balls were gradually growing larger, reaching the point where they resembled soccer balls. Eventually, one of the balls would obscure the brighter ball, creating something resembling an eclipse. Elsewhere, some individuals could be seen gathered in what appeared to be a meeting room. And how did it go? One of the subjects asked. Fine, boss. But I still don't understand. Why let Red Eclipse do the work? Ashley would ask. My plan was for the Astral Devastation user to come to us. Finding information about Red Eclipse is easier than finding information about the Demon Sunshine, so it will be easier for us. The subject would turn the chair around, with a malevolent smile. And how could that help us? Ashley asked with great curiosity. Help? He's not helping us. I want him to feel pain and suffering, after all, he was the one who defeated my favorite subordinate. He said with a smile on his face. Am I your favorite subordinate? Ashley stammered with an excited smile. You wish. I'm only doing this because you're still useful to me. The boss would think with a smile to himself. Yes, Ashley. We'll soon get all the forbidden arts, said the chief with a smile. Back with Izuku. Izuku was still hugging Chizuru, who didn't want to let go, she didn't seem to want to. Izuku could see Chizuru's great sadness, it was very, very deep. And that only fueled his great desire to take down the criminal group that caused this reaction in Chizuru. Your time is numbered. Red Eclipse. The green-haired man would think with a lot of hatred in his eyes while he continued to hug Chizuru. But the green-haired man wasn't the only one with so much pent-up hatred. Chizuru was experiencing something very similar to this. Little Izuku was comforting the brunette after the loss of his family. Why? Why can't I do anything? Said the little girl, who was completely devastated, between sobs. What will happen to us? The brunette wondered while crying. Izuku just hugged the little girl. While doing so, his gaze was lost. Come on, Chizuru-chan. The green-haired boy whispered, watching some police officers coming towards them. Izuku didn't want to be adopted by strangers. More than that, he wanted revenge, and he wouldn't get it this way. Chizuru wouldn't answer anything, she simply gave a slight nod. Izuku would take the chestnut's hand and both would start running as fast as possible. After a few minutes, Chizuru was already getting tired, and that was something that was noticeable, since they were getting closer and closer to being caught. With some luck they were able to escape and were now in an alley. Izuku, where are we going? Chizuru asked in a whisper while still crying. Let's go to the forest. Once we get there, I have something to tell you, said the green-haired boy, receiving a nod from the brunette. After a few minutes of running, both of their stomachs started to growl and they were still nowhere near the forest. Stay here, Chizuru-chan. I'll go get some food, the green-haired boy said, which scared the brunette a little. Can I go with you? The brunette asked with her head slightly lowered. No, it's possible that they are still close. So it would be best if only one of us takes the risk, the green-haired man said, to which the brunette nodded. Good. Please don't be long. said the brunette, to which the green-haired man replied. Don't worry, I'll come back as quickly as I can, the green-haired man said before starting to run in search of some food. So he's gone, said a voice who came out of the darkness. Help. Chizuru cried out as the man grabbed I want that boy, I want Izuku. And I need you as well, both of you are valuable to us, he said with a menacing grin. Don't be afraid, said the man in front of Chizuru. What he said would simply provoke more fear in her. Who are you? Chizuru asked fearfully. I'll be direct with you. My name is Soda and I belong to Red Eclipse, said the person in front of Chizuru. The moment Chizuru heard where she belonged, she would launch herself at Soda. He would dodge his blows with ease. Damn! Chizuru screamed as she was subdued by that guy. Hey, at least listen to me, said that guy while he subdued Chizuru. Chizuru had no choice but to listen to whatever that guy had to say. What do you want? Chizuru asked without making any movement. I like it that way. What I want is simple. I want Izuku. And I need you as well, both of you are valuable to us, he said with a menacing grin. Ha ha ha, honestly that was the answer I was expecting, the guy said with a smile. So? Chizuru asked. What would you do if I told you that? Because of Izuku your parents died? That guy lied. Chizuru suspected that was a lie. Although not everything was a lie. It was partly true, thanks to Izuku, they knew their location. But they already knew that location, the Ikanos family's days were already numbered, due to the outstanding debts they owed Red Eclipse. But this was something Chizuru was completely unaware of. I don't believe you, Chizuru replied in a serious tone. Well, I guess it's normal. But do you have any idea what that guy is hiding from you? The guy asked, knowing the answer. What are you hiding from me? Chizuru asked with some fear. The truth about your biological father, said that guy who already knew who Chizuru was. How did she find out? Well, thanks to the machine Ashley used to find out Izuku had astral devastation. She realized she had half of astral devastation and simply connected the dots. I'll definitely get a promotion when everyone finds out who the astral devastation user is. In fact, how stupid was that kid? Soda thought with an evil smile. Biological father? What are you talking about? Chizuru asked with doubt, since she already had suspicions that they were not her real parents, since they did not share many similarities. I'll tell you more, you look hungry. You'll be better off if you cooperate, he said, pulling bread from a bag as an obvious bribe. I refuse. If Izuku hides something like that from me, it will be for a reason. I prefer to hear it from his mouth than from my enemy. Chizuru replied before abruptly getting out of the grip. Then I'll do it the hard way, he shouted before shoving Chizuru against the wall. She cried out, the impact leaving her dazed. Blood flowed from Chizuru's forehead after the blow. Luckily, there were some bricks near the alley. I have to get closer to those bricks, Chizuru thought before starting to run towards them, but the only thing she received was a strong blow from Soda. Chizuru would fall near the bricks and with some difficulty would grab one of them. What do you think you'll do with a simple brick, huh? Soda shouted with a lot of mockery in his words. Chizuru wouldn't say anything and would simply throw the brick towards Soda, but since she was only a 6-year-old girl it wouldn't land anywhere near him. Soda would laugh at this before slowly approaching Chizuru. It's your end, said Jack, but he couldn't help but be surprised when he saw Chizuru's fists glow yellow. I see, this'll be exciting. Come to me, astral devastation user. Soda shouted madly as he saw Chizuru running towards him. As he was close to hitting Soda in the face with his fist, his hands would begin to glow red. Blood art, gore/combo. Shouted Soda before giving a big scratch in Chizuru's direction. Chizuru would end up narrowly dodging the attack, an attack that would make her right arm bleed, but this did not stop her. Damn, I shouldn't have held back so much. Soda thought before receiving the impact of Chizuru's blow which would make him retreat. I see you haven't trained him yet, but you've hurt me. You should be proud of the enormous talent you have. After all, you don't always get the chance to fight the strongest member of Red Eclipse. The man said while regenerating his face, which had some blood from the blow, with the help of his art. Chizuru, powerless, would simply give up. I'm sorry, Izuku. I couldn't do anything to defend myself. I'm useless. Chizuru would think before falling to her knees from exhaustion, her eyes slowly beginning to close. A few minutes had passed since Izuku had left. This one was running in search of the alley. After a few seconds, I finally found it. I could only bring a few apples, Chizuru-chan. Izuku said without receiving an answer. Chizuru-chan? Izuku murmured before entering the alley and seeing a mess. Inside the mess there was mostly blood, which worried Izuku. Damn! Izuku shouted before starting to search the entire place in search of Chizuru. After a few minutes he was about to give up, until he saw a piece of paper. It seemed to be a letter. What is this? Izuku asked before opening the letter. If you want the brat, you should go to if you come with someone else. I'll finish her off. Finally, if you don't come within 1 week, I'll finish her off too. The strongest member of Red Eclipse. He repeated what was written in the letter. Those damn Red Eclipse again. Izuku shouted into the air with hatred and annoyance towards them. Izuku would calm down from one moment to the next and sigh. If they want to be destroyed so much, then destroyed they will be. Elsewhere. I see you're back, Jack. Did you do what I asked you to do? The boss of the place asked. Yes, boss. I brought one of the boys just like you asked. Unfortunately, I couldn't bring the brat, but he'll still come to us. Soda said with a smile. That's very well done, Jack. Let's get everything ready for his arrival. Said the boss of the place with a smile. With Izuku. 1 week, huh? I'll make sure to get stronger. Izuku said to the air completely determined. It had been 6 days since then. The green-haired boy was training in the forest where he previously lived. I've gotten stronger. But I don't know if it will be enough to save you, Chizuru-chan. Even so, I'll take the risk. Said the green-haired man looking at the sky. I managed to access the art for a few minutes, but then I got tired. That's bad. But oh well, the time is almost up. Izuku said before getting up from the rock. Red Eclipse. Today I will finish you off. Izuku said with a look of hatred. Elsewhere. Ashley, Soda, how's everything going? The boss of the place would ask. Okay, boss. All the members of Red Eclipse are already at the base. All that's left is for the brat to come. Ashley said in a relaxed and confident tone. I still don't get it, boss. Why gather all of Red Eclipse to finish off a simple brat? Soda would ask, not so confident. It's simple, Soda. We can't be complacent. After all, he's one of the most powerful users of the art in the world. Even if he's only half of it, he could have become stronger. Besides, I don't know his abilities. The chief said with a smile, to which Soda nodded. Soda is the only member of Red Eclipse with one of the 5 arts, so he's probably enough. Ashley would think. How's the brat's art extraction going? The boss would ask curiously. The process is 80% complete, boss. Ashley would answer with a smile. With Izuku. He was getting closer and closer to reaching that place. There won't be much left to finish them, I hope you're okay. Chizuru-chan, Izuku would say to the air with concern in his eyes. Finally I had arrived at the place. The moment he arrived he would be greeted by a strong blow that would make him crash into one of the walls. Is this really what they called everyone for? He's just a weak brat. This will be easier than I thought. The guy who hit Izuku would say. Hey, that hurt. Izuku said as he slowly got up with some blood on his forehead. Wow, for someone so small you've got some stamina. You were trained, weren't you? The guy asked, getting into a fighting stance. What do you care? Izuku said before launching himself at high speed, simply leaving a yellowish trail in his wake and then hitting the guy hard on the head, destroying it instantly. A guy would run towards Izuku but he would simply dodge him and with a kick to the head he would knock him unconscious. I have to finish quickly. I already wasted a minute on something unnecessary. Izuku thought before entering the base. As he made his way deeper into the base, he swept away everyone in his path, not stopping for even a second. He left each of them badly wounded with a single blow, something that didn't bother him at all. After running for almost a minute, I finally reached the penultimate floor. There was only one room on this floor. So you're here, huh? Said a person who was sitting in a chair with his back to Izuku. Yes, I came to finish you off. Izuku said, getting into a fighting stance. Come on, you're very hostile. The person said before turning the chair around. Who are you? Izuku asked with slight curiosity. My name is Soda and I am the strongest of Red Eclipse. Soda said while putting on the fighting pose. If by chance you manage to defeat me, you will face my boss. Who by the way, is stronger than me. Said Soda with a smile. Defeat them? No, I won't defeat them. I'll annihilate them. Izuku said with a look of hatred. Try it, I'll show you that you'll never be able to. Sota said before being received by a strong blow from a hate-filled Izuku. Izuku would begin to hit Sota repeatedly on parts of the body. What the hell? It's impossible for him to be human. It hurts. Sota thought helplessly behind the green-haired man who was beating him up. Die, 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 die. Izuku would repeat as he hit Sota. It didn't take long for a sadistic smile to form on Izuku's face. Is he really a brat? I have no other choice. Sota would think before stepping back. Wow, you've actually hurt me more than that brat. You know? During our fight, she refused to save her own skin in order to save yours. Isn't that pathetic? It's just a plain id. Sota couldn't finish speaking because a strong blow to the face interrupted him. Sota would fall stamped on the wall due to the great force of the blow. The next time you talk about her like that, it will be the last time you breathe in this world. Izuku said with a sadistic look. Ha ha ha, a brat like you? Who do you think you are? Sota laughed as he composed himself and approached Izuku. I'll finish this quickly, Sota said before giving Izuku a strong punch in the stomach that would make him leave the room. Izuku would fall to the ground due to the blow. In our fight, the brat got hurt quite badly. Can you believe she even became unconscious? Sota said in an attempt to provoke Izuku, which worked. Too much in fact. Did you hurt her? Did you really dare to do it? Izuku would slowly get up and spit out a little blood. Yes, I did. Any problems? Sota asked with mockery in his words. At high speed, Izuku would appear in front of Sota. Die. Was what Izuku said the moment he appeared in front of Sota. Astral, devastation, solar punch. From one moment to the next, Izuku's right arm would begin to heat up to the point that it took on a yellow color. As I understand it, the astral devastation has a connection with the sun and the moon. And that makes me wonder, why is it yellow? It should be white. Unless it's still very weak. Sota would think arrogantly. Izuku's arms would turn completely white. The approximate temperature was 5,772 degrees Celsius. Oh no. I can't move. Why can't I move? I get it now. I'm scared. I think it's the end for me. With that arm, Izuku would pierce Sota's chest with supreme ease, killing him instantly. There's one more floor, Izuku said before pulling his arm out of Sota's chest and letting his body fall to the ground. His arm was quite red. Izuku would go up the stairs that led to the top floor, where there was also only one room. I have to hurry, I only have 30 seconds left, Izuku said before running towards the room. The moment he entered, he had to dodge a strong blow that came towards him. You're fast, huh? The boss of the place said before jumping back. Who are you? Izuku asked, getting into a fighting stance. I'm the boss of this place, my name is Ro, said the now known as Ro, getting into a fighting stance. Izuku without saying anything else would launch himself towards him and start trying to hit him. Don't eat cravings, Ro said before kicking Izuku so hard he would fly. Damn. 20 seconds only. This is bad, if the time runs out. Izuku would shake his head to the right in denial. Get ready, Ro. This is your end. Izuku said, getting into a fighting stance. Without letting him respond, Izuku would appear in front of him, giving him a strong blow that would not move him an inch. Huh? He was surprised by a strong blow from Ro, which sent him crashing against a wall. Why are you in such a hurry? Ro asked, appearing in front of Izuku. Ro would give several blows to Izuku that would weaken him quite a bit. Have you not mastered astral devastation yet? Ro said with some mockery, causing Izuku to open his eyes wide. Damn it. Izuku would scream and in a desperate attempt would launch himself against him. You're already very, very weak, he said while boredly dodging the blows that Izuku gave. 3, 2, 1. At that moment Izuku would fall to his knees completely tired and unable to move a muscle. I knew it, the boss said before taking a control out of his pocket. WHWH what this th that? Izuku would ask with great difficulty. It's the machine I used to extract the arts, it's almost new. Well, almost since it's already been used by someone. Ro would say with a mocking smile. Izuku wouldn't say anything, he just had a dark look on his face. As you might already be thinking, that someone is none other than Chizuru Ikainos, or should I say, Chizuru Minoko. Ro would say mockingly. I see. Izuku would whisper, his gaze darkened. It didn't take long for whisker-like marks to appear on his cheeks, His hair would begin to change to a slightly light blue-green, claws would also appear, and a light blue cloak would appear surrounding his entire body. That's not the astral devastation, Ro said, stepping back as he saw Izuku get up. As he stood up, what appeared to be a sky blue tail appeared on his backside. It's your end. A very serious voice murmured, this one coming from Izuku. When he looked up, you could see how his eyes were completely blue. Izuku would lunge at Ro. Once he was in front of him, he would scratch him on the chest. I see. You've gotten stronger, huh? Saying that, Ro would smile. Don't think that with it you'll be able to beat me, Ro said before launching himself at Izuku. Izuku would anticipate his movements and dodge them with ease. Take this, Izuku said before giving Ro a strong punch in the chest that would send him crashing into a wall. If I continue like this, I might lose, Ro would think until an idea occurred to her. Do you know who gave the order to kill Toki Minoko? Ro asked. It didn't take long for a terrifying smile to appear on his face when he saw Izuku's reaction. So Red Eclipse has some kind of connection with those who did that. Izuku would think before looking seriously at Ro. If your idea was to lose, you should have told me from the beginning. After all, I'm not fighting seriously yet, Izuku would say, to which Ro would be surprised. I don't believe you, Ro said, not believing anything the green-haired man was saying. Now that I realize, I can still use the art. Maybe my strength regenerated or something like that. The green-haired man would think before his arms, along with his tail, began to shine in a yellowish tone that then turned completely white. I'll finish this quickly, Izuku said as he got into a fighting stance. I've never seen anything like this in such a small child. This is bad. Besides that, how did he get stronger from one moment to the next? Ro would think, staying on guard. Slowly Izuku would walk towards his direction. Let's end this. Astral devastation, fury of solar fox. Izuku's tail would move at great speed towards Ro. The tail was moving at a speed that Ro could barely see, but it was too late, the tail had completely crossed him. Ro would fall to his knees on the ground. It's over, Ro. This is the end of Red Eclipse, Izuku said, staring into his eyes. The end? You're wrong. This is just beginning. And those were Ro's last words before he fell to the ground, dead. Izuku would deactivate the astral devastation to avoid any kind of accident. Izuku would walk over to the controller Ro was holding and grab it. Then he would press the only button on the controller. What appeared to be a basement would appear in the room. Izuku would go down the stairs. Upon reaching the basement, Izuku could see a machine inside. Chizuru was in that machine. In that machine there was a percent, this was 95%. Izuku would use his tail and hit the machine, causing it to deactivate and the percent to return to 0%. I would take Chizuru, who was unconscious, and disconnect some cables that she had. Let's get out of here, Chizuru-cha. She couldn't finish speaking as she fell to her knees. Her transformation would deactivate, and she would fall unconscious. Elsewhere, a person was leaving the Red Eclipse base. This was Ashley. Don't worry, boss. I won't let Red Eclipse fall, Ashley would think as she escaped from the base.